All right, folks, so the Trump campaign Get Out the Vote operation is falling apart. Let me explain. The Trump campaign decided to offload all of the Get Out the Vote efforts to Elon Musk and Charlie Kirk, two people who have no experience doing this, and they created a PAC called the America PAC, and they are the ones that are in charge of doing all these mobilization efforts. Well, it's turning into a disaster, no surprise to anyone here, and it could be the game changer on November 5th. There are rumblings that, well, first of all, they're using paid canvassers instead of volunteers, which means that they are doing it for money, not for the cause, which is already problem number one. Number two is they're paying them $20 an hour, but they are requiring them to have their own cars, and they are not reimbursing for gas. So essentially, when you're doing this type of work, you're driving. So these people aren't really making any money, so they're quitting. It's also turning out, and there's some news reports on this, that all these canvassers are quitting in droves because they are getting a lot of abuse at these doors. And so they've been making up that they've actually knocked on the doors in order to get paid and not do the work. So let's contrast this to Kamala Harris, who have kept all of those operations in-house and have signed up hundreds of thousands of volunteers to go door to door. In many instances, and I live in New York, for example, there are buses that leave from Manhattan every Saturday and Sunday with hundreds of people, and they go to Pennsylvania and they knock on doors. So which do you think is probably more effective? Paying people who are doing it for a paycheck, or people who are literally willing to drive hundreds of miles to do it for free? And they've been doing it for weeks, and it will ramp up as we get closer. And this is something that not a lot of people are talking about, which is different from 2020, and the fact that Democrats didn't really have a ground operation in 2020 because of COVID. Republicans did because they ignored all those, all the safety regulations. Of course they did. But Democrats are full out this time. And I think it's going to make a huge difference. That doesn't show up in the polling. But I think it's going to have a tremendous impact. And the fact that the Trump folks aren't really doing it, I think is going to have devastating impacts come November 15th. We'll see. Excuse me, November 15th, November 5th. Let's see what happens.